Hello and welcome to the first episode, or what I hope is the first episode of many, of my new series on this channel, A Week in Film. This is a sort of variation on what I used to do. I just think it's a more compacted, easier to digest format. It's going to be more of a podcast almost. I'm going to try and put lots of visual aspects in there, but this is just going to be me, unscripted, kind of just rambling on about movies that I've seen over the week. This is going to hopefully be a weekly thing, just discussing every movie I've seen. Forgive me if I stutter or if I kind of mumble along a lot. This is sort of my first time doing long-form content, and I say that in air quotes because, it's more of a podcast than anything. But yeah, forgive me if I'm not super clear with my words. I just hope this is the kind of thing you could have on while you're doing a chore in your house or doing homework kind of thing. Especially if you like movies. Forgive me if my lips are smacking or if there's noises in the background. It's summer and it is too hot to have the window closed right now. But enough with the formalities, let's jump right into it. So on May 20th, or Monday of May 2024, I watched Stop Making Sense, the Talking Heads concert movie, and wow. I don't think I've ever seen a movie quite like that. It was my first concert movie, and frankly, I didn't really care for Talking Heads prior to this, or concert movies at all, and that mainly kind of stems from the Taylor Swift's Eras Tour overhyping thing. I remember seeing it was like higher rated than The Godfather on Letterboxd, which I have separate opinions on, but I just don't believe that a concert movie could be better than, a movie like that. And having now seen Stop Making Sense, I realized that concert movies and more traditional story movies, I guess you'd call them, are in two completely different ballparks. Spoiler alert, I was going to do this at the end, but I'll tell you now just to further my point. I gave this movie a 10 out of 10. It was just an absolute insane just display of emotion and vocal talent from Talking Heads. So yeah, as I was saying, prior to this, I was not really huge on the Talking Heads. I've heard some of their music, such as, Same As It Ever Was. I've heard their hits, but I hadn't listened to this album. I hadn't listened to really any of their stuff other than that. And I went into this really wanting to like it because on Letterboxd especially, I saw a lot of people that I really respect, like their film opinions of. I saw them really liking this concert movie, and I thought, if I'm gonna watch a concert movie, I might as well watch one that a lot of other people like, a lot of other males like. I'm sure Taylor Swift's Eras Tour is a great movie in its own right, but it's just not my thing, And I just figured the Talking Heads are a band I've kind of wanted to get into for a while, so I thought this would be a kind of good gateway, and frankly, it was an excellent gateway. Just seeing the energy from this band up on the stage for an hour 29 minutes is insane. It's to the point where throughout the entire movie, it slowly ramps up and up and up and up. The performances get better and better and better. It was to the point where I could not stop bouncing my leg. I was so into it that I was practically shaking on the couch. And from what I understand, that's kind of what a concert movie's supposed to be. At some points, some of the more popular songs that they sing in that movie, I was singing along. I was just fully ingrained in it. You could see the energy on stage. You could see the sweat dripping off the main vocalist's forehead. It hits that same niche that documentaries kind of hit. Not animal documentaries, but for lack of a better comparison, gang documentaries where you see this raw, live in person kind of thing, and you can just feel how real it is. What they were doing on that stage wasn't intended to be a film, it was intended to be an entertaining concert. And what's even better is that it's both an entertaining concert and a super entertaining film. I could understand if you didn't like the Talking Heads that you probably wouldn't be a huge fan of this movie. If you don't really go for that kind of music, then I don't think you'd really get much out of it. But as someone who also didn't think they'd get much out of it, I absolutely recommend it because it's just a movie you could put on and just appreciate the pure artistry in a musical sense in this movie. I watched the HD 4K whatever A24 remake. I would have killed to see this movie in theaters. If you have a good sound system or a very big TV, I would definitely recommend watching it on there, because this just seems like the kind of movie that at the right kind of time could like change your life almost. But I definitely recommend it. It was my first concert movie. I don't really plan to watch many more concert movies. It doesn't seem like my kind of thing. I think this was kind of a fluke. I don't know of any other artists who I'd really care to watch a concert movie of. Maybe like the Beatles or something, even though I'm not huge on them either, but I'm sure a good concert movie could sway my thoughts. But yeah, I definitely recommend Stop Making Sense, even if you are not huge or just don't really know much about the Talking Heads, because when it's filmed this well, and the lighting and the emotion and the vocals and the instruments and everything is just playing in perfect harmony, and you see this beautiful performance going on in front of your eyes, it's kind of hard not to admire what the Talking Heads were in their prime. And it's hard not to notice how important they are in the history of that genre of music. And I know it kind of sounds like I'm talking out of my ass right now, but I'm just trying to really preach to you why I think you should watch this movie, because it's definitely worth your time. I watched it. I'm not huge on Talking Heads. I loved it. 10 out of 10. Probably the best concert movie ever made. And that's coming from someone who's only seen one. So, yeah, definitely check out Talking Heads Stop Making Sense. I struggle to recall the director right now, but really just excellent concert movie. And to jump over to the next movie, also on May 20th, Monday of 2024, I watched Saturday Night Fever, starring John Travolta. This is a movie I'd been meaning to watch for ages, and I'm sorry if the transition between the two wasn't too smooth or it was too quick. I just want to not get through these, but I just want to be sure to talk about each movie kind of equally. I don't want to ramble on too much about any movies in particular, unless they're really great, which I might do in like 20 minutes or something, because some of these movies are excellent. But anyway, Saturday Night Fever, I'd been meaning to watch this movie for a while. Just the iconography that John Travolta has in this movie is kind of like mesmerizing. I think back to that Santa ad where he's doing the infamous intro walk down the street, where he's Santa. Just the disco dance that he does. This clip from Despicable Me keeps flashing into my head where Gru does the dance to the same song. It's just, I needed to know if the hype around it was true. I needed to know if it was justified or if it was just like another 70s, I think, kind of cult classic that isn't really that good. My dad had been begging me to watch this movie for ages, so I'd kind of quite a few reasons to watch this movie. And I have to say I'm pretty satisfied with how it was. And I think what I enjoyed most about the film was just how surprising it was. For the longest while, I thought it was almost like a melodrama mainly focused around disco dancing, like the disco cup or whatever it's called in the movie. I thought that was going to be all of it. I was kind of under the impression it was almost like a talent show movie almost, where it's just John Travolta building his act and then winning the main prize at the end, and that's it. But this movie tackles a lot more social issues at the time than I kind of expected it would, because when you hear a movie called Saturday Night Fever, and John Travolta's in this ridiculous-looking, like, white suit doing disco dances, you're not really expecting commentary on abortion and on racism and on religion. Like, you're just not expecting these kind of things. And it works actually really well with the story. Like, I was kind of expecting it to feel forced, or expecting the jarring kind of nature of the two topics to clash, but it flowed pretty smoothly into each other, and it's hard not to enjoy both halves of the film, because they both feel really complete. Like, they don't feel like the social commentary stuff doesn't feel like ham-fisted, and the disco stuff feels like the real main allure to the movie, but it's definitely like equal to the social commentary. I just have a lot to say about this movie. The performances were really great, especially from John Travolta and I think he has an afro in the movie. I'm forgetting his name. I watched this on Monday, I guess a week ago from today, if I upload this on Monday. Hopefully I do. With his abortion and his girlfriend's abortion. You get the commentary about his brother leaving the church. It's just, I just thought a lot less of this movie. I thought it'd just be like a kind of fun, and I say this having not seen it, but I was expecting Grease. I was expecting like a lighthearted, kind of almost hacky drama, and this is pretty much the exact opposite of it. One of the things I picked up from the movie mainly, sorry if I'm like spitting, or you can hear me spitting, but one of the main things I picked up from the movie is the actual club that he goes to, the Odyssey, I think it's called. It acts as a sort of reprieve, however you say it, for John Travolta's character throughout the film from all these problems that are happening in his life. You know, he feels like a failure. He kind of thinks his parents hate him. He's always compared to his priest brother. And when you see him go to the club, he's really in his element. He's dancing. He's like talk of the town. And then by the end of the movie, and I'll try not to spoil these movies too much, because I recommend pretty much all of these unless I explicitly say it was bad or I didn't enjoy it. The club almost becomes, it like festers throughout the movie, and as soon as he realizes that he won that disco competition because he's Italian or Italian American and the other guys were, I think, Puerto Rican or Dominican or something like that, you can see him realize that the real world real world in quotes, that he was trying to escape through dance was around him the whole time. And you really feel for him. You really feel for him because compared to everyone around him, he's a normal dude. You know, he still gets into these petty racial dramas with these gangs around the city, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's a 20-something-year-old who's in the 70s during a disco craze or whenever it was. Forgive me for not knowing the time period. Just to wrap up my thoughts on the film, because I know I have been rambling, but that's this whole thing. Excellent acting, excellent cinematography, especially in the club. Really great. Really good social commentary. Really like shocking moments as well. Like there's some moments that just had me just holding my breath almost. Excellent music. You know, I really love that like disco kind of music. It's hard not to kind of bounce your leg a little when John Travolta starts doing these crazy moves. Just, it's a classic, and I'd say it's a classic for a good reason. I don't think this movie really abuses its classic status, I guess you'd call it. Saturday Night Fever, I give 8 out of 10. Not to say I wish it did more, but I just think it's not a masterpiece, but 8 out of 10, excellent movie, you know? And on to the next movie, Battle Royale. I watched this one on Tuesday of May 21st, May 2024, 21st. Battle Royale, the original Japanese movie. So before I talk about the actual movie, I need to mention how angry I am that I couldn't find the Japanese dub anywhere. So when I watched this movie, it was streaming on Tubi and on Freevee, I think it's called, on Amazon Prime Video. And I was pissed because when I watch a foreign film, I like to watch it in its original language, because most of the time, if you're watching a dub over, it's just kind of mediocre. You could tell and some of them anyway, especially in the older ones, you could tell their heart isn't really in it. And this movie is perfectly clear that these English dub voice actors did not care, like in the slightest. It actually takes away from a lot of the dramatic tension in the movie, because these characters just sound so laid back and they just don't care. It just really blew me the wrong way, or turned me the wrong way, whatever. Because the premise and the actual movie itself, which I swear I'll get into in a second, has had such a long-lasting, important impact on horror movies and just media in general. You know, it's easy to say, but Fortnite and PUBG and all these kinds of games were basically directly inspired by the concept, like the premise of this movie. Not entirely, not like word for word, but the idea where a bunch of people get dropped on an island and have to fight it to the death to win pretty much stems from this movie. And you'd think the original Japanese dub would be a bit more prolific because this is kind of a cult classic. But anyway, to talk about the actual movie, I really enjoyed it. I was afraid that it would feel kind of tacky, or it would feel like not exploitive, but kind of just like weird to watch high schoolers kill each other. But for what the movie does, and that's being an entertaining horror movie, I think it does it pretty well. I thought the practical effects, like the gore, I thought that was really great. Again, the voice acting, I won't go over that, but the actual physical acting, I mean, I guess was pretty good. The premise is just unbelievable that, you know, someone came up with that. Can you hear that? Assholes. I hate those guys. Sorry about that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it because it's just, it's hard to put into words, because when a movie doesn't stand out really well, it's hard to talk about it because it's just good. You know, like, I think the story drags on a little, and I think there's some weird character moments, and, you know, the action... Sorry, I'm reading over my notes. I take notes for all these movies, just to kind of know what I'm talking about. Yeah, half this review is just me talking about how bad the English dub is. Like, I know I spent like a minute just talking about it, but it's just really bad. And sorry for all these gaps. I'm gonna try and stop that right now. But yeah, really visually, I love the green of the island. It feels really tropical. Some of the characters are really interesting too. I can't recall their names for the life of me, but the teacher who's kind of administrating the whole game, the older student who'd already, or spoilers I guess, but who's already done one of the Battle Royale islands. All of these things mesh really well together, and you get this almost pseudo-romance story. You get really interesting character interactions. That's one of the best things about the movie, actually, thinking about it now, is the way everyone handles it differently. You can physically see how people handle it. You could see this one girl becomes a psycho killer, basically, because she was abused, or not abused, but just had a horrible upbringing. You see this other guy, he's trying to get the main two characters off the island because his girlfriend, who he met on the island, or the last challenge, kind of pushed him to do it. Not directly, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but I just really appreciated those aspects of the movie a lot, because it feels really real. Everyone has different reactions. You know, people are automatically really hesitant to kill each other. All the kills that you do see, especially towards the beginning, seem like really accidental. And as you watch every kill. Like, I don't think there's a single off-screen kill. And it makes the whole game seem a lot more, like, impactful. It makes it seem like they're not all just tallies. You don't meet every character in depth, and, I mean, honestly, you don't remember most of their names. But just the fact that you get to see all of them at least, like, 2 minutes before they die, see whatever they were up to. I'm thinking of the chick who runs and her boyfriend or whatever, and how they kind of hold each other in death. I'm thinking of the group of nerds who hack the island website. It's just, there are all these really solid aspects of the film, and I'm sure if I watched it in the Japanese dub, it would be an 8, but I hate to say it's a 7. It was so distracting. The English dub is just so bad. And what's worse is that I watched it on Amazon, on Freevee, I think. And the subtitles didn't even match up with the English dub. Like, it's such a shame that such a classic movie, such a revered horror movie, is kind of just thrown on a streaming platform, just not really cared for. Because, I mean, I know there's a sequel, which I will never watch because I'm sure it's bad. But such a important film to horror, which is such an underlooked genre, which is a shame because there are a lot of great horror movies. I'm gonna talk about some later. It's just a shame that it's so not cared for. And I know I'm not talking about the movie directly right now, but this is important to me. I do want movies to be in their best quality if you're gonna watch them or stream them, I guess. But to summarize, to get my mind off this movie, because if you could tell, I have a lot more to say about some of these movies than about others. I really enjoyed this movie. I still think it's a great movie, even if it could have been better with kind of extenuating circumstances. I think the acting's really great. I think the practical effects are great. The cinematography's great. The premise is great. There's a lot to praise about this movie, but there's just enough that kind of slips through the cracks to not really be able to excuse to call it an excellent, like, classic. It's still a cult classic, but it's not a proper classic, which is kind of what you need in a movie like this. But yeah, I recommend it. It's only like 2 hours long, I think. The ending is kind of silly, but overall, good movie. I would recommend. I think the like almost after credits scene is kind of funny. You see all these like weird flashbacks and like voiced over and like proper without being cut up. Yeah, good movie. Watching people betray each other is a good time, especially when they're people my age. Anyway, on to the next movie. Also watched on Tuesday, May 21st of 2024, was Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. This is a Hayao Miyazaki movie from Studio Ghibli for Ghibli Fest. I'm trying to catch every movie that they show in theaters except for Castle in the Sky because that movie was showing on my brother's birthday and we had things to do. But anyway, Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind is one of those Ghibli movies that I really wanted to appreciate more on the second time through, because I did watch this movie last year for Ghibli Fest and I remember not really enjoying it too much. And I remember seeing screen grabs of the movie on Twitter, and I really wanted to enjoy this movie a lot more. I saw all these super cool like art from the movie. Twitter accounts are really good at making movies look good with just single lines or like quotes from the movie and just really pretty screenshots. So I went into this movie with kind of an open mind because I remember really not liking it last year when I watched it. And I think I appreciated the movie about the same, but I just took a lot more notice of things. One of my biggest problems with the movie is that it doesn't feel fleshed out. Ghibli movies normally do a really good job at expanding on the universe. I'm thinking especially of The Boy and the Heron right now, Miyazaki's latest film. That world feels like properly expansive, but it still keeps it mysterious. Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind does this thing where it's pretty much focused on one perspective, and not to say that that can't work. It works pretty well in this movie. By no means is this a bad movie, but with how interesting the world is, and they literally have multiple factions in the movie, like multiple societies. I just wish they could have done more with it. It's kind of goes without saying because it's a Studio Ghibli movie, but the animation and the soundtrack, the score, I should say, just unbelievably gorgeous. This is another one of those like prime age Ghibli movies that every time you watch, you pick up new little animation things, little tiny expressions in people's faces. And one thing I really extra appreciate about this movie was the background art, especially in the I'm forgetting the name, the rotted forest, whatever it's called, the dead forest, dead plains, whatever. I really appreciated I described it to someone else as the biological look. This feels like a biological Ghibli movie, whereas like Princess Mononoke is like a fantastical, like folklore, I guess, kind of movie. This is definitely like it feels weird to say scientific because, there's still like this like 50-foot human that they bring into the movie. But you see all these bugs and like megafauna in this enormous forest, and yet it's cool. Like you can't help but be kind of impressed. I mean, the Ohm's design is one of the best I think I've ever seen in a movie. It's just so cool. their glowing red eyes, all that. I really enjoyed the design of this movie, the look of the movie. The story just throws me off too much to really properly be able to enjoy. Nausicaä feels like the only actual character in the movie. Not to say that every Ghibli movie needs to be a duo. I think Spirited Away does a pretty good job at just being a solo Ghibli movie. There are other important characters in there, but whatever her name is, I'm blanking on it again. I'm really bad with names, guys. She is like the character, and that movie works really well because the supporting cast is also really good. But in Nausicaä Valley of the Wind, Nausicaä is the only character that really matters. The boy who saves her in the forest doesn't really do anything. I don't think you even see him for the last 30 minutes of the movie, which is a shame because that duo dynamic, especially in a Ghibli movie, is really important. It's just, oh man, I wanted to like this movie so much more than I did. There's so the lady who wears the night outfit and all of them, so cool, and this huge primordial human egg that they have that they're slowly making, and excuse me, I think of this scene where the guy blows up they bring out the primordial human, and he uses his mouth beam on all the ohms stampeding towards the Valley of the Wind, and you see this enormous explosion, and it's moments like that in Ghibli movies, and you can compare it to the opening scene of Boy and the Heron. It's just those moments where you kind of stop breathing for a second, and it goes dead silent, and it's and it's just this crazy scene playing out. It's hard not to look at scenes like that and kind of admire them, because those scenes are what you're there in the movie for. Just so many things I wish I liked more in this movie. It's by no means a bad movie. I still really enjoyed it. I think it goes by really fast for being 2 hours 20 or whatever it is. It blows by. It feels really quick. Watching Nausicaä develop and become this this figure from lore, on the tapestry and on the carpet or whatever, I think it's really cool. Again, I wish I had more to say about the movie, but I wasn't huge on it, I hate to say. Just a really great movie. I mean, it's not one of Ghibli's best by any means, but you have to appreciate movies like this just for trying something. Because you could really tell they tried something with this movie, and even if it didn't work too well, they still tried. And that's what you have to appreciate about movies like this. I know I just said that 3 times, but I just want to wrap it up. Animation's beautiful, soundtrack's excellent, voice acting, I watched the Japanese dub, really great, conceptually really strong, just kind of falters on the story. It just feels a little too loose, a little too much, it just doesn't matter. I just wish it was better, because I really love the design of this movie. And I think for now, I am going to pause it right here. I'm going to get a drink. I am going to review my notes, and I will be back with you in just a moment. Hold on there for just 1 second, folks. Alright, y'all, welcome back to the second half of the first episode of A Week in Film. We're going to jump right back into it with my only movie on May 22nd, my little brother's birthday of 2024. This was Bullet Train. I'd been meaning to watch this for a while. It was my little brother's favorite movie, or it is his favorite movie, and I wanted to watch it and review it just for him. So I really wanted to like this movie because I'd seen clips of it and it seemed really funny, and I really liked the visual style of it and the gimmick of it all happening on a bullet train. I just thought it was a really cool idea conceptually, and there was a lot of potential for it. So I went into this movie really open-minded. I knew it was a comedy action. I wasn't expecting high art or anything, but I'm ashamed to say that I just didn't quite enjoy the movie as much as I wanted to. It is it sounds so evil to say, but it's like a Reddit movie. This movie is just so, it feels so just like the easiest way to put it, not to put it, but to talk about it, is through Brad Pitt's character, who I think his name is Strawberry, or no, Ladybug, I think. Forgive me for not knowing. His character is this, like, the whole joke is that he goes to therapy. He's like this criminal who goes to therapy, and he talks about rage and blah 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 blah, and it feels so forced. And every time he does a bit where he talks about like violence leads to violence, blah blah blah, it just feels so repetitive, and it never really feels as funny as David Litch, however you say his name, clearly thought it would be. It's just such a shame, because this movie would have been great if there was a straight man, besides the Japanese guy who you don't really care about for the whole movie. Because everyone is trying to be funny. And the girl, too. She's, whatever. She's just kind of boring the whole movie. It just, oh man. I wish there was more, the film was taken more seriously, because for what's happening in the movie, another thing to compare it to is the main bad guy's character, the White Death, I think his name is. His character throughout the whole movie is built up to be this intimidating, scary, just messed up, evil bad guy. Killed this entire, like, Japanese crime family. They showed in a flashback. And when you finally see his character in the film, like you finally see his face, he starts talking to Brad Pitt like they're old co-workers. And it feels so just not right for his character, and it feels like such a cop-out. This movie, Bullet Train, does a thing that I can't stand, where a lot of it feels like improv dialogue, especially of the twins, or the siblings, the duo, I think it's Tangerine. His dialogue feels so just kind of floaty, and just like on the script it probably said, then say something funny for this scene, and that style of humor can work, but for the kind of story that it is, where you're doing these intricate like action scenes, it just doesn't feel right. I think a stronger comedy would have made this movie a lot better, because this movie definitely doesn't falter on the action. The action is actually really well done, I think. And not to say the comedy isn't well done either, because a lot of the jokes do land really well, and they are pretty funny. But for what it should have been, I think it's just not as good as people hyped it up to be. People are talking about this movie like it was a revival of a kind of genre of movie, and to an extent, I guess it was. I think David Litch is really good at making these kinds of movies. I haven't seen The Fall Guys, which I'm pretty sure he directed, but I hear it's kind of similar. And if it is, it doesn't make me want to watch the movie anymore, because, and this comes down to personal opinion, this is all my opinion, blah blah blah, but this is just not my kind of movie. Comedy actions can work. Hot Fuzz is like one of the best movies ever. It's hysterical, it's excellent action, but I think the movie is almost limited by the gimmick. I think all of these characters could be better in a more loosely connected, almost anthology kind of film, obviously not on a bullet train. And just the way it ends, and the way it builds up to the climax, and the way it does actually end, it just feels so lazy. The film feels like, a good comedy is normally just kind of a vehicle for jokes, right? Like Life of Brian just kind of happens so that Monty Python can be really funny, and the same thing can be said for Holy Grail. But this movie doesn't have jokes funny enough to do that, and the action is good, but it's not focused on. There are whole 15-30 minute stretches with no action, and it's just disappointing. There are two characters played by two actors. Or two musicians, I think. I can't put my fingers on them. The Mexican guy and the black chick. Just not good. Like, I think I rolled my eyes watching it. And again, I know I'm being brutal, but I don't want to lie about it. I just didn't enjoy it like I shoulda. It's the kind of movie that I could understand why people like. Like, this isn't a movie where I'm at a loss for words when someone tells me that they like it, like I would be for Rebel Moon, say. But I just don't get anything from it. When I put on a movie, I want something really strong. I want, like, strong acting, strong, like, comedy, strong cinematography, strong music. And everything in this movie just feels kind of like 40% or maybe 50% even. It's not as great as it should have been. And the CG doesn't look great either, especially when the bullet train starts, like, collapsing on itself. I just think it could have looked better. And the slow motion in some of the fights, it just feels really, like, forced. It feels like it's really trying to make you laugh, which is not what you want. I think the best part of the movie is Lemon's bit on Thomas, weirdly enough, because it just feels so, like, it's the funny random humor, but I think it works really well for this kind of movie, because you're stuck on a bullet train with multiple characters who barely interact for most of it, and they're all looking for a briefcase, which is not particularly interesting. So you kind of have to have funny random humor in there to kind of keep the viewer engaged. And hearing all these random Thomas characters and terms being thrown out did get my attention. I'll admit, I have a baby brain. It got me on board. But to summarize, I mean, I gave the movie a 6 out of 10. On a rewatch, I don't know, maybe it could be bumped up to a 7. Maybe there are some jokes in there that really land. But this is just another... It's not a blockbuster movie, but it's like a movie that your dad would really like. It's okay. I would watch it just to watch it. It's I think it's on Netflix right now, leaving soon. I want to say on the 2nd, June 2nd. It's a fine movie. It's not high art. It's not as good as people describe it as, at least to me. But it's worth a watch. It's not the worst thing in the world. And on to, unfortunately, another movie I really did not get much out of is Pearl, directed by Ty West and starring Mia Goth, I want to say her name is. And Pearl, this is another movie that I hate to not like, because I remember I watched X in October last year for my Halloween scary movies marathon, and I remember really wanting to like X, because I wanted to watch Pearl after that because I'd heard so much good about Pearl, and Pearl is just not great. I'd say this is an average horror movie. Again, just like with Bullet Train, I can see exactly where someone would like the movie, but to me, and this is going to sound kind of silly, and it's more of a joke than anything, but I do kind of partially mean it too. I think it's because I'm not a woman. This is one of those movies that feels really, not skewed. Skewed isn't the right word because that sounds negative, but that feels really focused on the female experience, I guess. And I'm just kind of bullshitting here. I don't like, this is not a feminist movie by any means. I guess it kind of could be thought of as one. But for what this movie is and for what it does, I just don't think it's worthy of all the hype and respect that the movie's granted. To the visual aspects, I mean, I despise the oversaturated look of this movie. It can work. Later on in this video, I'll talk about a movie that I really liked that has oversaturated visuals. But in this movie, at night, it's the crushing blacks where you just can't see anything. It looks really good in the day. You see that, pink and blue and yellow sky with the clouds and the super oversaturated camera, and you see Pearl's red dress, and you see the almost cherry red blood going down her face. That looks great. I really appreciate that for the movie, but it's just, at night. There's so many scenes at night too. Like if it was only one scene, I wouldn't really complain about it. But quite a good chunk of the movie takes place at night, and it's just so distracting. I just wish... I understand what Ty West was trying to do. Because if I'm remembering, X wasn't particularly interesting in the visual field either. And he was like, I want to do something interesting this time. And he did it, and I just don't think it looks great. Mia Goth's performance is definitely the highlight of the film. She acts her heart out. Even if I don't think the screaming thing is really great for Pearl's character. I mean, it's good. It's interesting. Every time she screams, it certainly got me to pay attention. But I think for what they were trying to show with it, I just think it's kind of ham-fisted almost. I appreciate it, though. It makes for some really memorable moments in a movie that is kind of sorely lacking on memorable moments, even though I think the whole thing kind of wants to be a memorable moment. Yeah, Mia Goth's performance, her singing, her screaming, her actual killing, it feels really Ty Westy. Like, it feels just like X, basically. Seeing Pearl kind of lose her mind with her German mother is really cool. The music, I almost forgot about the music. The music is excellent in Pearl. It's like this really great kind of, it tries to sound like old Hollywood, and I think it does a pretty good job at it. Like almost operatic score. And it's so nice. It is so nice. It's this winding, just like bombastic, just beautiful, like orchestral score. I'm thinking, well, the main theme is anyway, and it fits so well with Pearl's thing, because it's during World War I, and there's this huge flu, and she wants to be a dancer, and she's watching these black and white movies. It's great. I think it's great. And that's what the worst thing about Pearl is that there's so many aspects that are excellent. There's so many things to praise about this movie, but there's so many things that I just can't get past. It's just like, maybe it's because I went into this not really... I wanted to like it because I didn't like X, and I was like, oh, Pearl will like turn me around, because I just thought it would. And I went into this movie, and like an hour 20 in, I was just bored. The movie had lost me completely. I was paying attention, I was still watching it. It's not like I was ignoring it or blowing it off, but it's just... It could have been so much better, and I really wanted to like it, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't like it. There's just so many things. The actual horror aspect of the film, the graphic killings and stuff, or graphic, if you can even call them that. Off the top of my mind, I can't really remember anything too brutal. I guess the chopping up of the best friend at the end of the movie, that's pretty graphic. It looks pretty cool. And on that scene, the mirrored effect, I hate how that looks. There are so many visual things that I just don't like about this movie. I'm sure Ty West knows what he's doing, and people must like it because it has a pretty high average rating. I must just be kind of missing something about this movie. Maybe I need to watch it at night in a very quiet, dark room. But I don't know. I just couldn't get behind this movie. I really wanted to like it. A lot of female friends of mine were like, oh, you're gonna love Pearl, you have to watch Pearl, review Pearl. And I finally watched it, it was just maybe if I wanted to dance, I'd have enjoyed Pearl more, but it's just not my kind of movie. And I hate to say it, but I didn't think it was all that. I would recommend watching it though, because on average people do really like this movie, and I am clearly an outlier. I'm very excited for Maxine nonetheless. I might as well finish this trilogy, this X trilogy. Yeah, so overall I gave Pearl a 5 out of 10. The just ugly, like I hate to say ugly, but just there are lots of really cool shots, but the oversaturated look just kills the whole thing for me. Good acting, excellent score, good practical effects, but just bad visuals, uninteresting story, and just kind of like a droning feel. I don't know. I'd watch again with like a friend or something, but I don't plan on revisiting this movie anytime soon because I just don't think I'll be a huge fan. Yeah, Pearl 5 out of 10. On to the next movie, which is also a horror movie, watched on May 23rd as well. I try to do horror Thursdays, which is why 2 horror movies in the middle of May, or the end of May. I watched Funny Games, which is, I want to say it's a German film? I think it's German. And I want to preface this by saying, before watching Funny Games, I had pretty much 30 other decisions for horror movies. I originally, before I put on Funny Games, I wanted to watch a Japanese horror. I was about to put on the original Ringu, or Ringu, however you say it. And then after that, I was going to put on Shin Godzilla, because I heard it was kind of scary, and then I was like, no, I don't want to watch that. And then I was going to put on this, like, I think Filipino horror movie, but I saw really bad average ratings, and I was going to put on Martyrs, but I didn't want to watch a European horror, and then I folded at Funny Games, which, funnily enough, is a European horror. But man, I am so happy I watched Funny Games, because I don't want to over-exaggerate, but I think this is the scariest movie I've watched since I started, like, properly watching movies. The premise, I mean, I know I haven't done this for any of the other movies, but this is definitely one that most people probably have not watched compared to the other ones that I've talked about. It is a home invasion torture movie on this poor family. It does so much well. It subverts so many tropes in horror movies, like huge tropes, things that happen in like every horror movie. It subverts all of them, and it does it perfectly. I mean, this will be probably the most spoilerish I get in the whole video, because I just really want to talk about this movie and how scary it is. It starts with, you know, they're driving to their lake house to go out on their boat. It's just really nice. They're listening to songs, and they're trying to name these like classical artists, blah blah blah. And they get to their house, and the dad and the boy are setting up the boat so they can go out sailing, and the mom is cooking, and this guy comes to the door and says, "Hey, could I have 4 eggs?" She's like, "Yeah, sure," for her neighbor. So she gets the 4 eggs to him, and he drops them. He's like, "Could I have 4 more eggs?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." And then she gives him 4 more eggs, and then he breaks them again. And after this, it becomes, and I don't want to over-exaggerate when I say this, but it becomes the most brutal, hard to watch, just horrible in a good way horror movie I've ever seen. This movie really doesn't hold back from the like just violence and like sadism at play here. The torturous duo, the people, or the torturers, the two, I'm forgetting their names, I don't know, and the mom, dad, and kid, and the kid can't be older than like 8. They just go through it in this movie. The movie is called Funny Games because the whole time the torturers are playing games with these poor people. The ones that stick out in my mind are when the mom has to undress and the kid has the pillowcase over his head. It's just horrible to watch. The sequence in the movie that stands out the most, but before I get into talking about parts of the movie, I have to talk about like the movie in general, I guess. Really just like horrifying visuals. There are a lot of long takes in this movie, and one of the most unique things about this movie is that there are quite a few fourth wall breaks. One really important one, somewhat near the end, where the torturers, one of them specifically, looks at the camera and directly addresses you. There's this one about halfway through the movie where he's like, "We haven't made it to feature length yet, have we?" And it's horrible because it shows you that he's doing these awful things to these poor people, and he doesn't care, and he doesn't care enough to address the audience. And it's horrible. It's so hard to watch in such a good way. To talk about that scene now, The kid runs away. He almost gets away. He finds a gun. It's not loaded. He gets brought back. And then the duo does the shotgun game. And it's the most gut-wrenching feeling I've had watching a movie in ages. The guy's in the kitchen making sandwiches because he's hungry. And you just hear a loud pop in the living room where the family's being held hostage. And he walks back. He walks back. And he's like, we gotta get out of here. Because they made a bet at the start of the movie where they're like, oh, if you're not dead in by 8 in the morning, then you guys win. And they walk back, and the kid is dead. And you could see his splattered head on the floor. And the sequence that happens after is just at least 6-minute long one take, where you just see the mom hop over to turn off the TV that they were using to kind of suppress the noise. And it's just the most gut-wrenching feeling in the world, because this mom and dad just watched their child get his head blown off. And the pure dread and anguish that these characters express in the scene is amongst the best performances I've ever seen in my entire movie watching career. And then the guys leave, and you're like, oh, it's like the movie's over, and you look and there's still 40 minutes left in the movie, and it's just heartbreaking because you know these people are not making it out. And the husband's knee hurts really bad, so he can't leave with her, and she dodges the first car because she thinks it's them. She gets in the second car, and it's the killers again. And you watch the poor husband get obliterated, and then you watch the wife. There's a setup early in the movie where to set up the sailboat, they need a knife to cut a rope or something. And you think, and when they're leaving to go inspect what these people are doing at the guy's house, the knife drops in the boat. And you think, oh, this is going to be a setup. And the whole movie I was like, this is how the wife is going to kill the guys. She's going to shank them or something. And she tries to cut through her ropes, and the guy's like, good try. And he just dumps her in the lake, and she drowns. And that's it. And then the movie ends with him doing the same starting bit with another family who they met way before in the film. And it's horrible. It's the most... And the last scene in the movie is him looking at the camera, all mischievous, and it's horrible. It's by a mile the scariest movie I've watched in ages. It's that gut-wrenching fear that gets me. It was so bad that, like a child, I was looking in dark corners of my house being like, oh god, I hope that they aren't here, you know? A movie hasn't done that to me in a really long time, and I love when movies do that to me. I love when they make me feel like that. But yeah, to summarize, I gave Funny Games a 10 out of 10. One of my favorite, or at least one of the scariest horror movies I've seen ever. Kind of redefined the torture genre for me, the home invasion genre too. Just total mental and physical torture to these poor people. It's hard not to cringe in a good way. You're watching this and you're like, I was blowing on my hands the whole time and kind of bouncing. I was just so worried for these poor people and so sympathetic, and it hits you perfectly. 10 out of 10. Definitely recommend watching. This is the older one from the same director. I'm forgetting what year it was. I think it was still in the 1900s. Late 90s, I think, or early 90s maybe, I don't know. Sometime in the 90s, I'm pretty sure. Definitely recommend this movie. It will scare you. Undeniably, it will scare you. I'd be shocked if you weren't scared or at least uncomfortable during this movie. Definitely recommend. One of the best horror movies I've seen. 10 out of 10. And to jump on to the last two movies, which I'm going to kind of combine for time's sake, I might not even do that. I watched Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I had to finish up the Mad Max trilogy because Furiosa just came out, and I really want to watch Furiosa because people are raving about it. I think it's Hideo Kojima's favorite film of all time or something. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, it's kind of a tragic movie in a sense because it feels like George Miller, I think his name is. Yeah, I think it's George Miller. It feels like he really fell into the role of the Mad Max universe. Because there are a lot of weird little guys and like a bunch of cool cars and great Bartertown, I think it's called. Really great design. Like the movie just looks good, like undeniably. Like the costumes and everything about this movie looks really good, but the story and the actual like driving force feels really just lazy. It feels like a almost copy of Road Warrior, which is the film prior. Mad Max's character, or Max's character, I guess, doesn't really change much. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to, but he just saves another group of people, and then he's a wanderer again. The little hooligans that he finds in the little desert ravine or whatever, they're kind of interesting, but I don't know. The movie just felt lazy. Like it felt like visually, like I said, you know, they finally fell into their style visually, but just story-wise, it just feels so boring and lazy. Good acting though. Pretty good music, if a little generic, unfortunately. Excellent set design, excellent costume design, good acting. You know, overall, I mean, it's probably the weakest Mad Max film. I would say the first one is, but I was actually quite the fan of the first one, even if it just nothing happens for the first like 70 minutes of the movie. But yeah, sorry I didn't talk about Thunderdome more. It just there isn't much to talk about. It's just Road Warrior again. Road Warrior is still a better film though, because it's the first time they did it. Yeah, I would if you've seen Mad Max and Mad Max 2, then watch Beyond Thunderdome. But if you haven't and you want to watch Furiosa, just watch Mad Max Fury Road, which coincidentally is the last movie I watched. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Mad Max Fury Road was today, or not today, but Friday 24th of May 2024. And Funny Games and Pearl were on Thursday the 23rd of May 2024. So yeah, Mad Max Fury Road, I'd heard so much about this movie. So many people I really deeply respect talked about how much they loved this movie. And I went into it really wanting to love it as well. Because having seen all of the old Mad Max films, I was expecting something bombastic. Because Mad Max Fury Road visually looked like a complete shift to what the series was doing prior. And it definitely is a huge shift. And I love the direction they went in. Just like 3 things that I can name about the movie that I love just to bits is the seamless CG and practical effects kind of merging, the excellent costume design, and the awesome action. I can't get over how good the action is how good the action is in this movie. It looks so good. The whole movie pretty much is a car chase. That's like most of the movie. And it sounds like it would get kind of boring and repetitive, but the movie just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and it gives you grand total 20 minutes of respite before you're just back into this crazy car chase. People getting their heads shot left and right. Furiosa, I was afraid because I'm forgetting Mad Max's actor's name right now, but I was afraid it wouldn't be great because I think Mel Gibson played that kind of weird, awkward Australian old cop role pretty well. But Mad Max in this movie is legitimately mad. He has these hallucinations of people who he couldn't save as a cop kind of permeate through the whole movie, and it acts as a way to kind of get him to do things because it's his form of redemption. he's trying to justify his helping of these people by saying he's redeeming himself. And I think it works really well for his character. And you really get a sense of who Mad Max is, even though you just met him, And to counter that, I think, even though the movie's called Mad Max Fury Road, I think Furiosa is a much more interesting character. Furiosa, the movie just came out. I cannot wait to watch that movie, because in this first movie, she's so mysterious. She has this big-ass cool metal arm. There's just so much to like about Furiosa's character and her dynamic with Mad Max, or Max. Just great character stuff. And the antagonist that I'm forgetting the name of, unfortunately, his design is just awesome. One of my favorite things about this movie is the costume design. Even though half the guys are just painted white and like black shorts, I think it looks great. It fits that post-apocalyptic Australian vibe really well. And I absolutely must rave about the color grading and visuals and just cinematography, all of that stuff. Because whereas Pearl, and trust me, this is going to make sense in a sec, whereas Pearl didn't work when it oversaturated its colors because the night scenes were crushing, like you just couldn't see anything. Mad Max Fury Road is really highly saturated, like the dirt looks like orange sherbet orange. And the nights, I was afraid because I thought the nights would just be like impossible to see. Everything is blue and it looks so good. I cannot get over how good the night scenes look. And seeing the light, I'm thinking of these like two shots in particular where the light lights up the girls in the back and Furiosa is just flat blue and it looks so good. The oversaturated and just look of the film is great. The cinematography, digital and like proper traditional cinematography, really great. The score I thought was excellent. I think it's probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a movie in my life. Having one of the core like soundtrack aspects be a physical character in your movie, being a car with a bunch of speakers on it, is just such a baller move. I couldn't get over it. Every time I hear the scary blind lady or man riff on their guitar was just sick. And especially when it integrates itself into the soundtrack, it's just too cool not to just kind of like freak out over. I really should be wrapping this up. I think I've been talking nonsense for about an hour now. But the characters were excellent. Everything about this movie was just unbelievably great. I was afraid that it wouldn't be as great as people hyped it up to be. I was afraid it wouldn't be a 10. But I mean, I gave it a 10. I could watch this movie 100,000 times. I'm so excited for Furiosa. There's just so much to like about this movie. But if I ever watch it again, I will be waiting for those night scenes. I will be waiting for that wonderful saturation. I will be waiting for those excellent little character moments, especially between Furiosa and her grandmas or her mothers, whatever. Just so much great in this movie. And I can't wait to see if they make a sequel to this movie, not a prequel, where they'll take Max's character, because his like mentally challenged, his like mentally scarred cop life affecting his normal life with all these little visions and stuff is really interesting. And there's just so much to chew on in this movie. Whereas the first original Mad Max doesn't do anything for 70 minutes and then gives you a really great car chase and final scene, Mad Max Fury Road is just that like octane and just pure excitement in the last half of Mad Max, or the last like 20 minutes of Mad Max, and just stretched over an entire movie, and it rocks. The action progressively gets better and better and better and more extreme and more extreme. Even a character that I didn't think I'd care much for, Nux, I think his name was, the painted white guy. So interesting. I love the way his character develops. I love the way every character develops. I think the The only thing I could complain about the film was the women, like the wives, and I know the whole movie is centered around them, and that's the whole reason that the chase starts. But I just wish they did a bit more. And now, when I said but, I was gonna say something positive, completely unrelated. I'm thinking of that scene with the dust cloud, and just how good it looks. It looks like a painting. It looks so good. I adored this movie. I really wanted to adore it, and good news, I adored it. I would definitely recommend Mad Max Fury Road, especially if you want to see Furiosa. Just to see Furiosa, I was about to say current day, just to see her before or after Furiosa, the movie. Just to see how she's changed and how Anya Taylor-Joy plays her character differently. Just, there's a lot to appreciate in this movie. Even if you're not like a film bro, even if you don't really care for some of these aspects, you have to be able to appreciate the somehow deeply emotional story and the ridiculous, over-the-top car chase action scenes. Not a lot of movies can claim they did both of those, but this movie can, and it does both excellently. But I think I've been talking too long. I am very tired. It's 12:40 in the morning on May 25th of 2024. Hopefully I actually get this video up. I'd be pretty angry if I didn't. I hope you stayed this long. If you've been able to listen to me ramble, trust me, I will get better at rambling if I keep doing it. I hope you guys don't mind weekly videos. I hope you guys just watch this video. I know the hour-long mark is probably a little scary, but if you can watch it like a podcast and ignore some of my breaks in conversation, then I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Share the video around, leave a like, comment what you think about this new kind of video, share it, whatever. Do whatever you want with this video. Once it's out on the internet, do whatever you want. I hope you watch most of these movies. Hell, I'd say all of them, even Pearl, which, you know, I wasn't huge on, if you've been listening. I hope you watch them. I'd love to talk about any of these movies with any of you in the comment section. I'm always open to a discussion about anything. I will defend my takes vehemently. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this kind of more podcast style video, even though my original videos were already kind of podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, one more time, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you come back for the one next week, because I really want to keep making these. This was a lot of fun, just to ramble about a bunch of movies I've seen for an hour and 7 minutes. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the theater, and you will see me in your sub box. Yeah, have a wonderful day. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.